Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about project conversion to version 9 in Decisions. The paradigm for how projects work changes significantly between version 8 to version 9, so hopefully this video can give you some insight to the best practices around that. This is meant to just be a general overview of the process. We will have more videos about troubleshooting and other elements of this process on our page. So let's start. We have updated this instance from version 8 to version 9. You'll notice that the portal and the studio have gone away, and we've kind of moved towards this project view. I have no projects in here, but if I go to my folder view, I've got a number of projects that I've been working on from version 8. So by default, when you update, your projects from version 8 are going to go into these folders. There are ways to convert these, what we now call legacy projects, to version 9, or you can move them into version 9 projects. And we'll go through both those processes here in a second. But before we get started on that, let's talk about some best practices and kind of the overall paradigm shift that has happened with version 9. All right, so in this graphic, you'll be able to see kind of some of the differences in the way that the architecture around projects has changed between V8 and earlier versions and version 9. In V8 and earlier versions, there was circular dependencies, and you could have projects speak to each other without having to declare all of those dependencies. And you can reutilize certain elements, and things can depend on others. Whereas in version 9 and moving forward, we are working towards kind of having these sealed units called projects. You can still declare dependencies within them and utilize other projects, but you need to declare it, as well as circular dependencies are a thing of the past. So that is something to consider. So some suggested prerequisites before updating to version 9 is to make sure that your folder structure is organized. So naming things, making sure that they're logically organized will just help you. It's kind of like organizing your house before moving to another house, rather than just throwing everything in a box and then trying to unpack it later. That'll just cause more headache for you. The next thing we're talking about is minimizing the number of entities not attached to any project. So again, you just want to make sure that if you have entities that are kind of floating in the ether, go ahead and attach those to a project in V8 or earlier, so that when you complete the migration, they are easier to locate. We would also recommend resolving circular dependencies ahead of time. So you can read the little description on the screen right now, but for the most part, you're just going to want to make sure that you have projects that can work as kind of sealed units before moving them over to version 9. You can resolve them in version 9, but it'll be a little bit easier. Again, it's kind of like fixing or organizing a room before you decide to move, or fixing items in the room rather than just carrying a bunch of stuff that you know will have to be reassembled when you enter into V9. And the last bit is kind of attached to the second point, but it's attach all items to projects. So if you have kind of floating items in the ether or designer elements, just go ahead and attach them to a project rather than having to manually migrate those things. The Project Hub is changing. So the Project Hub is the new way we are describing the interface for projects. It is a simplified environment and organizational folder tree kind of system. So this is going to help keep you organized. And that's all in this thing called the Project Hub, which we will take a look at here in just a moment. So let's get started talking about how you actually convert these projects from version 8 into version 9. If you remember on the front of the video, we had the projects from version 8, they were just placed into folders, but our project space was totally empty. There's going to be two major paths you can take to convert that project. One is going to be a right-click option to convert the legacy project to a new project, and that will update it from a version 8 to a version 9 project. And the other one is going to be to create a version 9 project and move that designer folder, kind of how we were naming them in version 8, into version 9. One thing to consider, in its current iteration with version 9, the project name is immutable. So you want to decide on what you want to name your project ahead of time. So if you do decide to go with the convert from a legacy project, you will keep the same naming convention. So if you want to change the name of a project for your organizational method, I might recommend making a project and then moving the folder rather than converting the legacy project. So just keep that in mind, that for now, the project name is immutable. Another major difference that you will notice as soon as you transition your project from version 8 to version 9 is that the concept of folders, normal folders, they all have to reside in the public folder now. So if you had dashboards or things that were located in normal folders, standard folders, depending on which version you're coming from in Decisions, you're going to want to make sure you move those into the public folder space so that you can access them. And again, that public folder is going to be in the drop down on the left side menu of your project. All right, so let's take a look at those two pathways that we can use to convert a project from version 8 to a new version 9 project. The first one that we're going to go with is called Convert Legacy Project. So if you right click on a project, I selected this purchase request, and go to projects, I can convert legacy project to a new project. I will not be able to change the name of this project. It will not let me. It'll be based on how it was in version 8. So when I click this, it's going to say something along the lines of Greg's purchase request. Thank you, Greg, for letting me borrow your project. You'll notice that I cannot change this name. It will not let me. I can still add a description, and I can select an icon, and you must do those two things. And then I can click Move. So we are in the process of converting that project. And again, the project name cannot change. So if you want to change that name, we would recommend going with the second option, which I'll show you here in a second. But now you'll notice that under projects, I have Greg's purchase request up here, right? And here's all the information. Greg's purchase request. Again, with dashboards and things like that, you're going to want to move those into the public folder for full functionality. We can use Move, and we're going to move them into public folders. Anything that's going to be end user facing, you're going to want to have in these public folders. All right, so let's talk about the second option here. The second option gives you the ability to rename your project in case you want to. So what I will end up doing is I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to go to projects, and I'm going to build a new one. And I'm going to call this one Travel Splash. And I will put an icon, and I will describe it. And this description can be a great place to like maybe add task lists or links to build requirements, stuff that you're going to want to frequently view, because it's going to be available on that landing page for the Project Hub. For now, I'm just going to put Travel Splash information. Cool. And now that my project has compiled, I can go back over to folders. I can right click on the project, what used to be a designer folder, still is a designer folder. And I can go to Move Folder to Project. And that will give me the option to do that Travel Splash project that I just made. You can also make a new project. So we'll go Travel Splash, move it root, and we'll move it. Folder move to project Travel Splash successfully. Feeling good about that. So now when I go into Travel Splash, here we have it. Sprint 1 Travel Splash. And I can go through, and if I have any dashboards or customer facing information, I can again move these into my public folder because that is where they are going to need to be. If you want to make a new public folder or just what you used to call a normal or standard folder, you'll notice that when I click my project and I go to add a folder, it's always going to be a designer folder no matter what I do. If I click it up there, if I right click here and go create folder, it's a designer folder. The only options I'm going to have for what used to be known as standard or normal folders are if I'm in this public folder, I can click create folder and it is just a normal or standard folder, not a designer folder like previously done. You'll notice that in Decisions, up here, if we go to import a project and choose a file, I should have some of my downloads here, right? Travel Splash example. This is going to fail. So why did it fail? It's because version 9 projects are viewed in a different paradigm than version 8 projects. So if you do want to import a project, you'll have to actually create a project on the top right and then import it into that project. So again, by default, it does not view a version 8 project as a version 9 project. So when you click import, it's not going to give you that option. But we can do that with this. So we create a project. You'll have to select an icon. And this is a really cool tool because when you utilize this flows or elements from this project and other flows, it'll place this icon next to the tool on your canvas in the Flow Designer. This part you can change later. Cool. So now you'll notice that once I've created that project, give it a moment to compile. I have my imported project. Here's the project hub. But from here, I now can import that project. And this will work successfully. Again, in kind of review, those are the two methods that you can utilize to convert legacy projects into new version 9s, as well as a method to import single projects as well. Another friendly reminder that you're going to want to do some maintenance before updating to version 9, and that's going to be mainly organizational based and making sure that elements within your Decisions instance are attached to projects or are clearly named. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to reach out to training@decisions.com or support@decisions.com. And we can give you some insight on what the process might look like. We're going to have more videos on troubleshooting and how to clear some validations and how to make sure that your projects are working in full functionality, but that's going to be saved for another video. So thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Thank you.